Today, the US government announced that CPI inflation through January 2022 is up to 7.5%, the highest number since 1982. If you actually look at that number, it's not based on real numbers that the real people are facing. Property and house prices and rent costs are up about 30 to 40%. Used cars are up 20 to 30%. Food up anywhere between 15 and 30%. Eating out up 20%. So how come all these costs have risen way more than 10%, yet the government still insists that CPI inflation is 7.5%? And even at that, even at their worst guess, it's still way lower than the actual real figure and still way higher than the 1980s. On top of this, last year we had the narrative for the mainstream media and politicians that inflation was nothing to worry about. It was going to be a short-lived thing and it was caused by supply chain issues caused by COVID-19. Well, a year on, we're still facing it, and actually it's getting worse month by month. The US government doesn't have an effective plan, and on top of this, Biden's talking about announcing a $3 trillion spending plan. Where's he getting this money from? There is no money to spend. The debt ceiling keeps going up. The US is in $7 trillion worth of debt this year alone. I don't know where he's getting this money from. The Biden administration has done a terrible job, to the point where Biden is actually liked less than Trump, who everybody wanted rid of. The elections this year are going to be a massive issue on inflation. And I'm not here sitting telling you to go buy Bitcoin, that Bitcoin's the answer. But if you don't have real estate, shares in tech companies or stocks or bonds that are maturing at more than 10%, or if you don't have Bitcoin, then you're in a world of pain this year, and it's only going to get worse. The problem with inflation is that it hurts the average American. So the people that live paycheck to paycheck, or they're getting pensions or whatever type of social benefit, those are the ones that are going to be hurt the most, because they're not going to be able to afford to heat their house or fuel their car or feed their families, while the politicians and the federal government have been buying stocks and shares using cheap capital on 0% interest for the last 2 years. The federal government can't even maintain its employees. The Federal Reserves had to get rid of 2 or 3 employees recently who were inside trading. All the while, people like Nancy Pelosi and Senator Warren have been buying and selling stocks using inside information that the normal person can't get any information on. So while they know what policy decisions are going to affect the stock market, you or I don't have that information, so we can't invest in appreciating assets as easily as they can. Like I said, I'm not saying Bitcoin's the answer, but with average returns of over 60%, it's sure as hell better than the dollar. The dollar is crippling the average American because there's no value to it. On top of this, you've also got the geopolitical games that are going on with Russia and China, and whether Bitcoin's good, whether it's bad. One minute it's bad for the environment and people are shying away from it. The next minute it's good and it's a safe haven. With Russia announcing this week that Bitcoin is going to be adopted and regulated, they've made the first move in the geopolitical games, and the United States needs to catch up, but they don't want you to. Bitcoin's the future, and it's going to destroy the banks. Amazon destroyed the shop on the high street. The internet destroyed the fax machine. The mobile phone destroyed telecommunications. And Bitcoin is going to destroy the banks. And when I say these things about Bitcoin, people think, yeah, you're biased, you're invested in Bitcoin. It doesn't bother me. You buying Bitcoin or someone else buying Bitcoin doesn't bother me at all, because I know long term Bitcoin is a disruptive technology and it's going to replace the banking system as we know it. In the final days before the 2008 financial crisis, the credit ratings still had the American banks rated at AAA days before they collapsed, days before they went bust. The insurance companies like AIG didn't see it coming. They all thought they were too good to fail. They all thought they were too big, too powerful to fail, and they failed. The financial crisis came and it caused devastation across America. I feel like we're not quite on the edge of the cliff, but we're getting closer and closer every day. And with these clowns in Washington making decision after decision that only harms the average American, I don't know why there's not more protests on the streets like there is in Canada. At least the Canadians have said we've had enough of this nonsense and are taking a stand. The US government caused these issues. Now they'll use fancy terms like tapering or quantitative easing or bonds and yields and treasury bonds and everything else that you don't need to know about. They printed too much money, they gave away too much cheap capital, and they've caused these issues. They even are responsible for the supply chain issues because they caused a surge in demand with loads of disposable income at a time when the economy was effectively shut down. You can't give people money and ask them to go and spend it in the economy while producing no goods and not expect some consequence from it. The system is broken, from the financial system, the political system, and the November election is going to be really interesting to see what happens, because effectively Biden can't get any of his policies approved right now when he's got the majority in both houses. How's he going to get anything done when he loses that majority? And you see Democratic and Republican senators and congressmen coming out in favour of Bitcoin because they understand that there's millions of people that will vote for them because they're pro-Bitcoin. Well, people are starting to wake up to that, and that's not actually true. Eric Adams, as the mayor of New York, was heralded by the Bitcoin community for accepting his pay in Bitcoin, but now he's came out today saying that he's not pro-mining. Well, you can't be one or the other. You need to pick a side. You're either pro-Bitcoin or you're not, and if you're pro-Bitcoin, you're pro everything to do with Bitcoin. If you're against Bitcoin, then you're against everything, and mining's included in that. Mining uses over 50% renewable energy. It's cleaner than any other financial system we have, but for some reason people hone in on the energy usage of Bitcoin. To anyone watching the UK, you might think, why is this relevant to us? Well, it's going to have a knock-on effect. You saw the financial crisis. It started in the States in 2008. It had a ripple effect around the world. It causes mass chaos when the US government gets it wrong because they're the huge economic power. And it's going to happen to the UK. We're just a bit slower to wake up to it. But what I would say is, in the States, they do have alternatives. They do have Bitcoin, and they're free to move around the states, which have different jurisdictions, different regulation. And you see that right now with a lot of influx into Miami and places like that because of their relaxation of pandemic rules a lot quicker and their relaxed view on crypto. We'll see that in the UK eventually, but the UK needs to catch up, and it needs to catch up quick. This is just a quick video today because I wanted to discuss the CPI, 7.5% inflation. If you've not already heard, it's the highest since 1982. On top of that, we've got record debt in the United States, and it's going to have a massive effect on the economies all around the world. It's hilarious that the US government is running the US economy so badly, blaming everybody else, blaming other countries, but they're happy to criticise what's going on in El Salvador or criticise what Russia are doing or what China are doing and their monetary policy. Don't forget, it's US politicians' monetary policy that has caused this inflation, and they'll try and get out of it and blame other things, but it's their fiscal and monetary indiscipline that's caused these issues. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and follow us on Twitter at Scotsman Crypto. All the links are in the description that you need to follow us in the Discord and get discounts on any buy-ins of crypto that you're doing. Thanks very much.